Well, good. I still think it's morning. Good morning, everybody. This is the second one of these Township Trustees calls that we've done today. This is, you guys have a little bigger budgets. I'll give basically the same introduction, but what we really want to encourage you to do is to press the question button. Under the arrow, if you have a question, raise your hand, and then when we call on you, we'll just ask you to unmute. These things work a lot better with questions, so we know what you're thinking about, what your concerns are. Every entity is a little different. First of all, I want to thank you for joining us. We did get guidance that we can give credit for this for fiscal officer under the Fiscal Integrity Act. So you're all self-reporters, so when you report, go ahead and give credit for that. Next week that will be up and available. And so the more questions you ask, the longer credit you're going to get, I guess that's one way to look at this. From a 30,000 foot perspective, we are very concerned that the administration has not been giving guidance as promptly as we'd like with regard to the fiscal scenarios. For townships, you're in a little different position than your villages and your cities and counties because your large revenue source is property taxes. In that regard, we do anticipate property tax revenues to be more stable than the others, but you still may have a hit, particularly in counties where your auditor is going to defer or change, your auditor and treasurer are going to refer or change the payment dates. But the short answer is the property tax collection should be more stable than the other revenue sources, so that puts you in a little better position. If you have a JED or a TIF, certainly those incomes are going to be impacted. From the state perspective, your local government fund sharing may also be impacted. We're waiting to see what the legislature and the governor does with regard to the next fiscal year, which begins July 1st, with regard to any adjustments there. But the state has been told across the board, look at a 20% adjustment. So you might want to plan accordingly there. The next revenue source that you have that's going to be potentially impacted is your gas tax receipts and your road money. That at one time ODOT was estimating a 40 to 50% reduction in miles driven, and so that certainly could significantly impact your gas tax receipts. So if you have projects that are anticipating that revenue, you may want to make sure we're getting adjustments. A little disappointed the tax department and the governor's folks have not been giving updates to those numbers as quickly as we'd like. Some of it is just reality in their world. They don't know those numbers. But we've tried to extrapolate and look at those numbers from that perspective. Again, use the state's 20% adjustment number, and at least you've got a benchmark. If you're pleasantly surprised that it's only 5%, then that's good news. If it's 30%, at least you've prepared for some of that adjustment. And so that's a good management tool. If you think you're going to be hitting a fiscal watch or fiscal emergency situation, please, please, please contact us early so that we can come in and get our local government support unit in there to help. If you have questions for us beyond this call, please ask them. Hopefully you know your local regional customer service rep from our office, and they can certainly get those questions back to us. We are also doing FAQs and putting, they're all on this call, by the way. James Coyne, who's their director, is on this call as well, so they'll take those questions. But we are putting the frequently asked questions from this call online. It should all be out there as well. With regard to the auditor's office and our audits, if you're currently in one of our audits, hopefully that's going along relatively normally. If they need to get records from you, it may be that they call and ask you to pull the records, set them aside, and then they'll come get them in a day or two. They are operating with appropriate social distancing requirements. They are operating to try and avoid personal contact. If they need to do a meeting, we are using Microsoft Teams and the Skype commercial application for that. We do not recommend Zoom because of some cybersecurity issues. And from that regard, look, cybersecurity is still a huge issue. If you're on our UAN network, you have a little bit more protection there because we have some safeguards built in. But we think that there's a cyber issue out there. People know that more people are working remotely. They're doing phishing expeditions. They're trying to get into your system. Look, it wasn't very long ago that we had a township in Ohio that lost $1.1 million last summer through a hack. And we don't want that to happen. And so we're there to help. I think Ohio loses more money through cyber fraud than we do to employee dishonesty. And so remember that that's still out there. Remember, use your best practices, train your employees. avoid phishing scams, all of those kind of things that are out there. So we are very concerned about these things as well, and our people are here to help. With that, let's open it up to questions. If you want to ask a question, go to the raise your hand button. It's in the control panel. It's under the red arrow. We'll call on you, and you'll just need to unmute your mic, and we'll open it up to questions. I do want to thank Heidi Fott from the Township Association for helping to make this happen. We've done probably 10 or better of these calls with other local government officials, and they work a lot better when you're asking questions and having a discussion. From that perspective, we just want to be helpful. We have instituted a audit maximum flexibility standard when they're auditing the COVID periods. That doesn't mean we can't audit. It doesn't mean we won't audit. It doesn't mean we don't have to still look for the same things, but we want you to help us help you. And in that regard, please, please, please document what you're doing. Explain if you're making a deviation. Explain if it's something extraordinary, and to the extent we can give flexibility and explain why, we will certainly do that. One other issue that's coming up is we asked the legislature, and they agreed to give you more flexibility to conduct your meetings, either online or by video conference or teleconference. A couple of requirements you need to be aware of. We recommend that you record all of those and make those recordings public and available. We also make sure that you have access to the public on those calls or those video conferences when you do them live. So publish the numbers, publish the call-in information, publish the webinar, or the access. That will be very important as you do that. So from that perspective, it's important that you do that transparency, and you'll be able to conduct your meetings better, but give the public access. Sue Belcher, for our first question, do you recommend we amend our certificates with the county auditor to reflect the shortfall, or should we wait until November or December? I'm looking to Bob Hinkle for that answer. Bob?
I think it depends on if they are going to have to reduce if they anticipate they're going to have to reduce their appropriations, then I would encourage them to do that now.
Yes. If you think you're going to have to adjust your appropriations, then we would encourage you to do it now. Earlier is better than later, and make that out there. Otherwise, there's a little bit more flexibility, but yes, short answer is you probably ought to think about doing that. And again, make sure to the extent that you can do that, you do things, again, with township resolution. Next question, do we have one? We don't have anybody asking questions, so please ask a question. These things will go a lot better if we know what you're thinking. There isn't a bad question. Even if you want us to look, we'll certainly. Oh, we've got somebody. Who do we have? Raise your hand, and then we'll ask you to unmute. Who do we have? Thomas, you're on the call. Go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, will this meeting be on a web page somewhere where other trustees can watch it that may be working?
Yes. All of our stuff is on our web page. We record them and put them out on YouTube. You can certainly have the link. Our link is going to be up. And we also then put all the questions on a frequently asked questions on the board, and you can see the answers. Did we answer your question?
Yes. Now, another question, will this be for the 2020 year or 2021 as far as budgeting? The reduced amount you're talking about, the 20% reduction.
All right, what we're talking about is looking at the state does fiscal years starting July 1st and running through the following June. Okay, our fiscal year that we just ended, the state did an adjustment of about I think $1.7 billion, $1.8 billion, and then they did a similar like-line in reductions in other areas. So whether they embargo any local government funds there, we don't know. I don't think, did they do an adjustment there? We haven't heard of that. That's what we thought. Exactly. With regard to next fiscal year, we don't know whether the governor and the legislature are going to do a local government fund adjustment. We think it's good that you anticipate. They're telling everybody 20% across the board and state agencies for GRF. So you might want to anticipate that. As revenues fall, remember the state income's largely from two sources. It's sales tax and it's income taxes. We know that the state lost 30% of this fiscal year, which ends at the end of June, in income tax collection, just because the April tax date was moved out into July. That just kicks revenue from one fiscal year to the next. But we do anticipate they're going to have an income tax cut, income tax hit. With 20% of people unemployed, that's going to be reflected someplace. With sales taxes, we know that the non-auto sales tax has taken a hit in the 10 to 30% range, depending on what numbers you believe. We haven't got the good numbers from the tax commissioner yet. And the auto sales tax, we've heard reductions as much as April down 50%. And so to the extent that the local government funds are tied to those numbers, you should see an adjustment. And that will be picked up in the local government funds that are allocated after the July 1st fiscal year, we think.
Townships on a calendar year.
Townships on a calendar year, so it's going to impact your 2020 budget. But look, it may also impact in your 2021 budget, because remember, the calendar year for the state's likely to make 12 to 13 month adjustments. You may see a reduction not just in 2020, you may see a reduction that carries over into 2021. So the answer is yes, both. Did I answer your question? Hopefully you're still with us. You can unmute and come back in if we didn't get to it. All right, our next questioner is Daryl Hawkins. Daryl, go ahead and unmute and join us.
Okay. For those of us who are new, that don't have a clue what's going on even before this, what revenue specifically do you anticipate are going to be impacted by this 20% reduction?
It depends on the revenue sources for your township. First, your income tax and sales tax, if you have a JED or a TIF, could be hit in the short term. Property taxes are probably going to be less impacted, largely because, remember, property taxes are paid in arrears, and they're assessed, their rates are adjusted every 3 years. So we don't think that there's going to be much adjustment in the property tax, with the exception of saying you may have a number of lates and defaults increase because people don't have the revenue because they're not working, or landlords aren't rented, or those kind of things. There may be some adjustment there, but that's less likely to be a significant hit. For example, people who have their mortgage company escrow their property tax payment, those escrows are there, they should be forwarded. Some counties are doing a delay in the June or July taxes, 30 days, 45 days. The tax commissioner is looking at those relatively suspiciously. But again, we think that's a local call, and that could be there. But the local government funds and your gas tax receipts, which come from the state, are both likely to take a hit. We haven't heard any direction from the state on local government funds, but if you plan for the worst, you're pleasantly surprised if they don't do it. You're less disappointed if it gets worse. We just think that's a good benchmark, that 20%. Gas tax revenues could be, certainly for the month of when the March, April, and May receipts come in, the driving's less. Just look at the roads. I didn't hit hardly any traffic in Columbus. So that tells you fewer people are driving. And from that perspective, if you've got road projects that are pending, you may want to reassess them based on the anticipated revenues. Hopefully the tax commissioner and OBM give us a better guide as to where we think those are going to come in. But right now, we just want you to be cautious, knowing that those could be impacted. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, pretty much. When you say be cautious of road projects, to what extent?
It's a sliding variable. I don't have the end-all be-all answer here. We're learning this just like you're learning this to see it. And I don't have access to the revenue numbers from the state in this area. We can only look and make predictions based on the numbers the state has given out. And when ODOT tells you that they thought driving was down 40 to 60% in the months of March and April, that means people are buying 40, 60% less fuel. They're paying 40 to 60% less in gas tax. So if you anticipate 2 of your 12 months are down 50%, that's going to be an overall reduction over a year of 1/6 of that adjustment. If everything went back to normal, and I don't think it's realistic to think that everything's going to ramp back up to 100% in the short term. So I would be cautious, and to the extent that we can continue to have your association and that we continue to seek out guidance on those revenue numbers, we will do that. But right now, I don't think you're off base anticipating 10 to 20% adjustment in your gas tax receipts.
Okay, one more question, then I'll shut up.
No, these are great. I'm sure there are other people on the call that have the same questions. And I'm sorry I can't give you a definitive answer. Remember, those aren't numbers we calculate. You're our clients, and what we're trying to do is just give everybody a heads up. And by the way, if you think you're going to get into a fiscal stress, let us know early so we can get our local government support people in early to help, so that we can help you respond early. Go ahead. Other questions?
Okay, I don't think our township's in that kind of trouble because our previous fiscal officer did a really good job. But if we're a small township, so we've budgeted this year about 100,000 for roads. Should we do half of that? Should we do none of that? Should we just wait? What?
If you can look, I know your road time is your summer period. I'm not in a position to tell you because I don't know your fiscal stress. If you have general fund monies that you can kick over to help with that, if your revenues are otherwise stable, it's a multifaceted question. What I would suggest is that you talk to some of our local government folks, reach out to our customer service rep for your area. Where are you? I don't have what township you're with.
Southwest Claremont County. Just first county next to Hamilton.
Ryan Holiday. Reach out to Ryan Holiday. Ryan can get you with one of our people that can give you a little bit better projection and a little better estimate based on what we see, and can give you better guidance on how to answer that question. Okay. And so that's the simplest answer. And we're not going to be able to come in and tell you, well, we think if you did 90%, you're going to be fine. We're going to try and look at a revenue projection. I would think certainly it shouldn't be a reduction of more than 50%, but we'll see if you did anticipated an adjustment in the 10 to 20% range, you certainly could have some confidence. But we don't want you to get out there and do things based on revenues that may or may not materialize, because that could cause you stress. If you're fine, if you've got a reserve and you've got the ability to supplement that with general fund dollars, you might be able to continue to do 100%. And anticipate that. So it's going to be a variable question based on your overall fiscal health.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. We have a question from Courtney. Courtney, so you're recommended we should make an amended certificate for a 20% reduction in gas revenue. Bob?
Based on what we're hearing, that may be a prudent action.
That may be a prudent action. Right now, I would tell you to hold up on doing that until we have better guidance from the people passing through their gas tax revenues. I would tell you, look at your overall fiscal health. If you guys are literally spending paycheck to paycheck, receipt to receipt, yeah, I would think I would adjust my spending. I think that's the prudent thing to do. It's what the state's done. We all did a 20% non-GRF or non-personnel GRF reduction just the end of this fiscal year. We're going through and articulating with freezes and adjustments and things like that, because we know there is a revenue problem coming. I heard from the Senate President, they anticipate that to be a $6 billion hole. Now they think they've solved $1.5 billion of it with this fiscal year, but that's still a significant adjustment coming. And if they can figure out how to do that without touching local government funds, I'm sure they want to do that. But it's prudent until you see what their solution is to anticipate that the local government funds are going to take a partial hit. And if that's the case, that's going to impact your revenue. Now, if your local government funds as a portion of your revenue is only 5% of your total, and you took a 20% hit on 5%, the world may not come to an end. Okay, 20% of 5% is 1%. You can probably manage through that. But if your local government revenue is 50% of your revenue and you take a 20% hit on 50%, it's a much different number. And so you may have to figure out how you balance that out. And so, and if you're sitting on a 85, 90% carry forward of your operating budget, you're probably going to be able to weather this out fine. My guess is not many of you are sitting on that, but it's just going to be a case specific analysis. And our whole approach here is not to sound panic buttons, but look, it's a lot better to manage over a longer period of time than it is to manage cuts over a short period of time. And so we want to try and give everybody heads up to take prudent management steps to anticipate a revenue adjustment. And then if everything comes in and you're normal, you say, well, you know, we made adjustments, but we didn't have to. Now we have good decisions to make on where we can spend money that we otherwise thought we weren't going to have. You're just going to find it's a better way to manage. And so that's what the purpose of this call is. It's not to panic you, but it is to say, we're trying to get information out to you as early as possible so that you can make those adjustments over the longest possible period and make the hopefully adjustments smaller over a longer time instead of being hit with very large adjustments over a very short period of time. Did I answer your question? Hopefully. Other questions? Go to the red arrow, go down, click raise your hand button. We're happy to have that discussion. If you're making decisions inside the township about new normal, who you pay, how you pay, maybe you had a maintenance guy who normally came in and worked 40 hours a week because of the stay-at-home order, you had them doing planning and other adjustments over the longer period of time at home. Look, as long as the trustees documented that with a resolution and a direction, it's going to be easier for us to audit that. We're not going to come in and say, well, we think what he was doing on the COVID period should have only taken 24 hours and you paid him for 40. We're not going to do that kind of micro assessment. What we're going to do is look to see that you are paying people according to the resolution of the trustees under the new normal. And so make sure you're documenting and keeping those kind of records. Make sure you're explaining what's happening with records that help us help you with maximum audit flexibility. No records, we can't give you any flexibility. With records, we can. We just got an email question. Will there be any changes to audit costs? When I became state auditor a year and a half ago, we implemented very broad procedures to reduce the audit costs for individuals and entities, and most of you are entities that would qualify for this. We increased dramatically the eligibility for agreed upon procedure audits, which cost between 30 and 50% of a full audit. We're asking the legislature for additional authority to let us do additional AUPs, agreed upon procedure audits, and flexibility so that we can continue to reduce those costs. Our audit costs are dictated by what we have to do in the audit. We're a fee-for-service agency. We have tried to emphasize cost accountability and fiscal reductions. I've asked all of our audit staff to reduce audit costs wherever they can. And so with adding the basic audit for smaller entities, entities with smaller budgets, increasing the eligibility for AUPs, we think that that should adjust some of the costs. But we are still required to do the audits. We are still out there doing audits. The other thing that you need to be aware of is the legislature last budget did pass, and we're hoping this stays relatively unscathed, the local government audit assistance fund, which kept us from increasing the audit cost to a lot of local governments. Most of you are a direct beneficiary of the local government audit assistance fund. It is an upwards of a 25% reduction over what would have been from audit rates that haven't increased on an hourly basis since 2003. And so we are continuing to be very concerned about audit costs. And if you have a special concern about your audit costs, please raise those with us and let us take a look at that. Work with your customer service rep, and our folks will be happy to address those concerns the best we can. I continue to be in our audit managers and our regional chiefs' ear about making these audits more affordable. Heidi has a question. Will there be any guidance issued regarding COVID-19 expenses that could account for the use of CARES money? The short answer is, I wish we had better guidance from the federal government and from the state. OBM, we may take odds with some of their guidance. We believe that the CARES Act, as of now, is going to be limited to those three bandwidth, those three areas. So if you're getting CARES money, document the snot out of what you're spending it for and make sure it falls into one of those three areas. We will be issuing a bulletin when we get more guidance from the feds. Right now, that was supposed to come out this week, but right now it hasn't yet come out, and we're at the end of the week. So when we get guidance, we'll pass that on. But we anticipate that that is going to be subject to the single audit, the more detailed audit requirements. So you're going to have to document what you did, why you did it, how you did it, and make sure that you're showing the calculations. And so from that, the short answer there is yes, hopefully we can give you more guidance. We just don't have it yet from the feds. Ted Adams from Porter Township. If we were due for an audit this year, when should we expect to hear from the auditor states regarding the schedule of the audit? Hopefully that's on the normal cycle. They may be a little delayed, but they are, look, our audit people, we have 600 employees that worked remotely before this. Out of my 800 employees, we went to total work remote. So most of our people didn't have much of an adjustment. It's been seamless. I got a report yesterday that tells me that most of our audit counts are pretty much hitting the marks. We're close to where we were last year and 2 years ago. So we should be on schedule. So if you're expecting to hear, you should be hearing relatively soon. If you don't hear, contact your customer service rep and they'll figure out what's going on for you as well. Okay. Mary Benedict, Newberry Township. Is there a chance that AUPs might be available for more than 2 audit cycles before having to do the full, more expensive audit? The short answer is that's statutory. I wish I could extend that. We've asked for authority to extend that. We continue to try and work with the legislature. We think we should be able to do a risk-based assessment and possibly expend those out more than 2 audit cycles. We haven't got that authority yet. And so the short answer is no. We are required to do that under the statute periodically. We are continuing to ask. Your association would be very helpful to us by continuing to ask for that authority as well, letting us go to a risk-based analysis so that we can do more AUPs. And we think that that's appropriate. We're also looking at how we can blend those costs. For many of you, if I were to tell you we're going to do 2 AUPs in a regular, you would be happier instead of seeing your cost of the AUP fall to a third, and then full. If I could figure out a way to blend that rate over time, we're trying to work on how to do that so you don't get the sticker shock on that third cycle year, where it goes from 2/3 more, frankly, and that's what a lot of you are seeing. So we're trying to balance that and work that out. But as of now, we are statutory obligated to do no more than 2 cycles of AUP. Keith Phillips of Crawford Township asked, many townships utilize funding for roads using OPWC, Ohio Public Works Commission. Since this revenue is from a voted bond issue, will this money still be available? We do anticipate that to be unchanged, although right now there's a dispute going on in the legislature about reappropriation and about the capital appropriations. So we'll see how they refund that and what they do on the future. So I would tell you directly to the legislature, the best I can tell you is that is likely not to be impacted. All right. How do we find out who our local government rep is? There is a link on this site, James. There will be a link on this site linking you to who they are. Please make sure that they hear from you. Our local government reps should be out there on the link. James, do we have that link up yet? The link is up in the chat. So look at that link. You can click on it. Depending on where you're at, there are 8 of them out there. If you can't figure out who that was, James, what's your number here? JM Coyne, C-O-Y-N-E, JM Coyne, C-O-Y-N-E, at ohioauditor.gov. That's the email address, and James will, which is also in the chat, James will get that to you if you can't find it through there. Robin from Lennox Township just received her request to submit our 2021 alternative budget to our county auditor by July 22nd, 2020. Any chance this will be postponed, awaiting better revenue trends? Great question. Do we set those dates or does the county? Those are statutory dates, Robin. I wish I could extend those. What I would do is submit your best estimate, and in your estimate, I would tell them that you anticipate this is subject to adjustment based on anticipated revenue trends. I would think that you could also anticipate in your proposal the adjustments that we talked about. Certainly your property tax ought to be stable. The others could be variable. And so that would be my best advice on that. Hopefully, Robin, that answers your question. It is statutory. We don't have flexibility on those dates. Other questions? Please click the raise your hand button. It is under the red arrow. Unmute. These work a lot better with questions. We've got some other things to talk about, but we have another question. Heidi, will there be an online training available on your website for fiscal officers to comply with the Fiscal Officer Integrity Act? The short answer is yes. We had to cancel our local government summit this year. We are going to probably add another day to our fraud conference that's in the fall, but who knows whether that's going to be all online or not. And we continue to look at training issues. And so right now we have made training online. We will give credit for online training. And the link is in the chat. And so you can go to the chat, click on that link, and you can go right to our site and get all of that online training links as well. And so that's out there. Please utilize that. We are really concerned because we have a number of new fiscal officers to make sure that you're getting the support you need. And this is an area where, again, I can't emphasize enough. If you need help accessing training information, if you need help accessing information because you're not sure where to go, our regional reps are out there. We also have our local government support unit, our local government services unit, our LGS unit is out there. And even if it's necessary for them to pair you up with another fiscal officer to come in and give you some fiscal officer training one-on-one to make sure you're hitting the ground running. If you are on our UAN system, we have training available for that as well to make sure you're up and running. If you want to join our UAN system, please, we can do that. We have the capacity to do that remotely and to get you on the UAN system as well. All of that should still continue even during this time period. So any other questions? We're running up on our 30-minute time frame. We can go a little long, but if you have another question, please click the raise your hand button or send us an email question. And if we don't get one, we'll start the process of wrapping this up. Look, you guys have rock stars in your association. Thank you so much for Heidi, for all of your help in this. We can do these again. And Richard, it looks like we're getting a question from you. Richard, come on back, try again. Go ahead and click the raise your hand button and unmute, and we'll join you right in. If it's a text question, go ahead and send it in. We'll hold for your question. If anybody else has questions, go ahead and bring them in. We can continue this on. We just had them set. Richard Wiles. Richard, what's your question? Go ahead and unmute. I think you're there, Richard. Go ahead.
Are you going to have more of these webinars in the future, once a month or something like that?
We can. We'll work with your association to do them. From our perspective, we have the technology. We can do them periodically if that's helpful. It's going to be based on your demand. If you guys want them, we're happy to do them. Look, our goal is to help our customers, and you're all our customers. We want to be as open and transparent as we can. I wish we were getting a little bit more accurate prompt information from the governor's people, but again, I'm not being negative. They just don't get the information for a while, and they have to marshal it and massage it and make sure it's right. We want to give you as guidance as early as we can. These webinars are recorded. They are available on our site. There is a link there on the site, or if you go to the auditor's website, you'll be able to see them. All of the questions, by the way, are reduced to our frequently asked questions with the answer, and there's a link as well, so you can see the questions as well and toggle through them as well. We are giving credit for this, and so you can self-report a half-hour credit, and if we go longer, it's whatever we go. But for that, and we think that that actually came from our last meeting with other township trustees. They asked, can you get credit for it? And I said, if it's up to me. And then I found out it is up to me. So there you go. You get credit. Kathleen has a question. Kathleen, since elected, by the way, did we answer your question? Okay. Kathleen has a question. Since elected officials' compensation is tied to the total budget, if with reduced revenues we fall below the budget cutoff of change in compensation, such as a budget of 550,000 and eventually actually falls to 500, at what part should we start using the new compensation amounts to match the new budget? The day you would pass the amended budget. That's the date you change your compensation. Amended
certified revenue.
Amended certified revenues. That's what we're talking about. The day you pass your amended certified revenues is the date your new compensation has to kick in. So yes, statutorily, your budgets are tied to your compensation, and the date that you certify the new revenue, that's the date your new compensation kicks in. That's a great question. And that's one that, look, don't mess up on that, because I don't want to issue findings for recovery. We've had to do that in the past. It just gets messy. When in doubt, that's something certainly flag and let us get you an actual audit answer. If you think that's going to happen to you, call our rep. Let's get one of our audits, call one of our audit chiefs, and they'll get in and answer what date that was from the audit perspective, because we don't want you to be overpaid or underpaid. We want you to get the compensation right, because nobody wants a finding for recovery. All right, I don't see any other questions out there. If there's anybody, one last, I feel like an auctioneer, going, gone. One last chance. Anybody out there has a question? That last one was worth the 30 minutes in and of itself. Thank you all for participating. We sure appreciate all that you're doing. We have another question I see coming in. Look, we know this is new territory, and I want to make sure we're helping get everybody through it. But we know, look, people are going to make mistakes. We're making mistakes. We want to get everything right. And so we want to be as helpful in that process as we can. When in doubt, ask us. And look, to the extent that we can get those answers for you, let us get those answers. Courtney Burnett. Courtney, you're on the line.
I just had a question about, we were talking about training. I did the new fiscal officer accounting module training, and I can't find it on the reporting site. Is that one that we get credit for?
Is that the one?
Yeah, we'll reach out to her. You ain't.
Courtney, I'm just told by my IT chief that it is not on the site yet.
Okay.
But they will reach out to you to make sure you get credit for it. They are in the process of trying to get that up on the site.
Okay, thank you.
But that's another great question. Courtney, if you don't have an answer to this question within the next 7 days and somebody hasn't reached out to you, make sure you reach out to you. Know, Courtney, who your regional rep is?
They just told me, Dominic Ciano.
Yep. Yeah. Dominic's a good egg. He's a hard worker. If Dominic or somebody doesn't reach out to you in the next week, call Dominic. Do you have Dominic's information?
I do.
Okay. So make sure he's in touch with you. He works for you. Well, actually works for me, but he knows what the expectation is. So he's your guy. He's your fixer. All right. Thanks, Courtney. All right, any other questions? Going? Again, I got to give a shout out to your association. Look, I think the Townships trustees and the work you guys do is rock solid. I live in an area and for a long time represented townships in the legislature and always used to say I had more townships than any other government. Thanks for what you're doing. My father-in-law was a trustee for 22 years. The work you guys do is real government and real local. And so I appreciate it. And your association is solid. If we can be helpful, let us know. Thanks for all you do. Here's a question, got email. What steps are we taking to ensure audits are safe? Look, our people, our auditors know what their expectations are, whether it's social distancing, whether it's maintaining the records. The best thing they're doing is asking you to pull records and then making sure those records are safe when they take them back to do the analysis. So they are doing things in the audit process to stay safe. And to keep you safe. And we're trying to do as many meetings as we can over a remote format. We have access to Teams and a Skype commercial. We encourage you to use those formats and not Zoom. There is a Zoom. Our state IT director has issued a security concern with Zoom. And so if you need help doing anything remotely, and you were using Zoom, let us know. We can make our Teams and other formats available to you as well. And so we want to make sure if we're interacting that we do it safely as well. So with that, thank you so much, Heidi. Thank you for the association, and thank you all for joining us. Hopefully this was helpful. If we can be helpful, reach out, ask questions. We'll answer them to the best we can. And stay safe, folks. Stay safe, and let's keep serving Bob and Betty Buckeye.